that team might only be good at engineering. And even when you go into engineers, they might only be good at back end and not
Yeah.
front end. They might
Yeah.
only be good at front end, not back end. They might only be good at branding, not UX.
Yeah.
There's so many nuances to all this kind of work that, I mean, there's a reason we have 75 people, and trying to replace all that with 3 people in house, not to mention retaining those 3 people.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. When business think of upgrading their capabilities, they might feel that they need to hire an agency that can help get them off the ground. Or they might feel that internally they might be able to manage the majority of work. But the reality is that to be successful with e-commerce platform implementations, you need several resources with different skill sets. They spend years sharpening their craft, and it's very hard to match this expertise with internal resources. So, how to approach the right mix for the teams in planning the digital transformation journey? In today's episode, our guest, Isaiah Bollinger, discusses how to approach e-commerce initiatives for brands. He also discusses how the needs for different size of the company may be different at each stage of their life cycle. Finally, he discusses how to build the hybrid team with the right balance of internal and external talent. Let me introduce Isaiah to you. As co-founder and CEO of Trellis, he helps businesses grow by enhancing the information technology and online marketing components of their business. He has created a very strong team of highly skilled engineers that can develop small WordPress sites to some of the largest and most complex e-commerce sites on the internet. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hey Isaiah, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been, I don't know, maybe over a year since I last joined the roundtable we had a little while ago.
Time flies, my man. We have had COVID and it's like 5 years right now. We are probably in downturn, so it's fun times, I guess.
It's been an interesting, I mean, yeah, since COVID, since 2020, I mean, we had the crazy downturn, then things spiked back up, it opened up, and now it feels like we're kind of going into, I guess I would say almost like an overdue recession. I remember in 2019 thinking like, we're kind of due for a recession. Like it's been, 10, 11 years, and now it feels like I think we're kind of there where whether it's official or not, I know like the official government numbers don't say we're in a recession, but it feels.
Let's talk about how many and how long is it going to be, I guess, right? I mean, see, we have like 3 recessions in like last 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it feels like a recession, right? I feel like we've been in it since honestly Ukraine, since inflation hit.
Yeah.
Because even if growth is there, costs are up. So like it feels like your money just doesn't go as far. People are scared to spend. Certainly there are industries that are doing better than others. Like, there are going to be industries that'll win, that'll grow, and that'll win in this recession, right? For whatever reason. But overall, I think from talking to I talked to a lot of industries, agencies, we're obviously a digital agency.
Yeah.
People are feeling the down effects. I mean, every day on LinkedIn, Alphabet to lay off 12,000 people. That's the first thing LinkedIn it says on my LinkedIn right now. So, I think it's going to be at least through this year. But the problem is it this year or is it 1 to 3 years? Somewhere, I'm no guru. No one knows, right? Like the real amount. I think it's probably going to be anywhere from as little as 6 months and we get lucky and the second half of the year gets good.
Yeah.
To as long as 3 years, and it's just a slow kind of if it's a longer recession, I see it as more of a long, mild recession, or we see even a bigger downturn followed by kind of a faster rebound. Not sure which is better.
Whatever it is going to be, it's not going to be fun. I can tell you this.
Yeah. I mean, just like any downturn, though, I think there's always opportunity, and it's an opportunity for like a lot of really good companies came out of the last real recession, out 2008, 2009. So I'm trying to stay optimistic and think about it that way.
Yeah, that's what we can do, I guess, at this point of time. Yeah, so let's do the official intro, I guess. And I don't know, I know that you have appeared on many different podcasts, but there are going to be people who might not know it, at least in my listener group. So do you want to talk about a little bit, who you are? How did you start Trellis? Give us a little journey there.
Yeah, so I'm Isaiah Bollinger, the CEO and founder of Trellis. Started it pretty early on, kind of worked briefly in marketing, and then just saw an opportunity to go out on my own. And it's always something I've wanted to do, is kind of do my own thing. And the backstory is it kind of has come full circle. I started out almost more marketing, somewhat full service, but very broad. Quickly realized, young, inexperienced, that being really broad was really hard.
Yeah.
And it was hard to do everything well. And I kind of fell into e-commerce and then Magento, experimented with lots of different platforms, found a really good technology partner who was a better developer, two developers better than myself. So
there's always going to be somebody who's going to be better than us.
And I was focused more on the sales and marketing and project management, and I was doing some development, some engineering, light engineering, front end stuff, not like crazy complex back end stuff. And so we doubled down on Magento, and that we grew, we kind of matured, figured out what we got a little bit smarter, and then over time we actually went more and more back to full service. And now, really right now, where we are today is we're actually going to be launching a new website, not complete overhaul, but like, let's call it a 50% retheme to what we have, brand update, messaging, like really more around the full service concept. And we feel like we're uniquely positioned to really help people across all acquisition, conversion, brand. Obviously all the functionality, development, and engineering has been our bread and butter for 12 years now. And then even the post-launch fulfillment. So a lot of what you talk about, the ERP, the integrations, people just really underestimate, like, oh, we got the order. Like, okay, but getting the order is not like the business. You actually have to fulfill the order.
Exactly.
You have to process the payments. You have to do customer service. You have to deal with returns. You have to do retention. Like, if you don't get repeat orders, if you're not getting repeat orders, like, your business is dead. I don't care what you say. Like, you can't survive off one-time orders from, and only getting new customers, So we're doing all of that. And I think people are almost like, what I'm realizing, some people like don't even believe that we can do all of it well. But that's a longer conversation. I'm not sure we'll even have time as to how we do it all well.
So I'm definitely interested in hearing more stories, right? The more stories that we can bring in, the more perspective people are going to have in terms of, how to take this journey. Because everybody is going to be probably at a different stage in their life cycle. Some people are sort of trying to understand how e-commerce works. The other folks have done this for like last 20 years. They might not be as good, right? So we are going to look into these stories, and obviously the space is evolving, the technologies, every year you have like 5 new technologies. So I don't know how you can keep up with that, right? That's going to be a challenge as well.
So the reason we're able to do all these things well is we do pick our battles. So we primarily only focus on Shopify, BigCommerce. We've done Magento since, we know it so well. It's been, almost 12 years. And then we picked up Headless. We acquired a small headless firm. We look at Headless as kind of its own tech stack, even though Headless ends up being sometimes it could be Shopify, it could be anything, but so it's kind of 4 tech stacks, and then we look at the full service ecosystem around those areas. So it's not like we'll work with every technology in the world. Like, there is going to be a point where we say, hey, look, like, that's not a fit. There are areas where we don't touch and we try not to play in. So that helps us be good at the full service aspect of it,
Yeah, very, very, very cool. So obviously, I am really interested in some stories in terms of, maybe you can touch on many different stories, or we can talk about the customer life cycle.
The stories that I think I'm finding more and more interesting is we're definitely doubling down on industries, and we're getting better at understanding the size and the maturity of the business, right? So I think I'll do 3 stories, right? Where we're seeing success with a small business, right?
Yeah.
People that are maybe 1, 2 million, maybe even 0 on e-commerce.
Yeah.
The total business is only 5 million, 10 million. They're really benefiting from our full service capabilities because they don't have time to go manage 5 agencies and have an email marketing agency and a dev agency they just need a smart company to help them navigate the whole space, run their business. And that's been really successful because we can come in and say, look, a lot of times they have different problems. Sometimes it's like, look, your acquisition sucks.
Yeah.
You need new customers. You're small, no one knows who you are.
Yeah.
You need a new brand and you need new customers. So we'll focus on ad spend or email. Sometimes I'm talking to a few $5 million businesses, small businesses. 5 million is still, we consider pretty small.
Yeah.
But they have a large customer database. Like they've been around for 20 years and they have a very loyal, large customer database. And I'm like, how much do you get on email and SMS? And they're like, we get almost nothing. So to me, it's like, we're like, let's just get email. Like if we just get their email working well, that's an immediate lift to the business. So when we talk about the full service, it's not like we're going to do everything all at once.
Right.
We're going to pick the lowest hanging fruit, the areas that we think they need the most, and double down on that and get that right until we move on to wherever next is in the cycle that we think needs the most help. So sometimes it's brand, sometimes it's acquisition, sometimes it's email and SMS. We lump email and SMS together because we see phone and email as like similar, direct kind of outreach. And sometimes it's integration. I mean, it starts with strategy, right? So we've got a couple stories in the, I don't want to go too deeply, but I don't know how much I'm allowed to say and how much they feel comfortable about us saying.
You don't have to name them, but I mean, we are trying to understand, what was the situation.
We have a couple small businesses in the 5, sub 10 million range where just by focusing on email, we saw immediate ROI within the first, 1 to 3 months by setting up like better automations, better workflows, better post-purchase email workflows and segmentation. A lot of people just don't do thoughtful segmentation based on did they buy, when they buy, what they buy, are they a repeat customer versus a new customer, all that kind of stuff. The other one is we just see a lot of poorly run ad campaigns on Meta and Facebook. Well, we call it Meta now, Meta network, and then the Google network and TikTok. So just not a lot of thought, just coming in and you just quickly kind of find these quick wins. So with the smaller businesses, a lot of it is we're looking for quicker wins, right? They don't have, they can't, it doesn't make sense for them to invest in a 12-month, 18-month project, right? They need to go from 5 to 5.5 to 6 million relatively quickly. They don't have huge cash reserves, right? So we also created a brand Shopify package where we'll do all the rebrand in Shopify in 12 weeks. So 12 to 18 weeks, or BigCommerce. We'll revamp the entire brand, logo, messaging, like complete overhaul of the look and feel and the website in 12 to 18 weeks.
Weeks.
Sorry, be very clear. 12 to 18 weeks. So 3 to 4 months. Entire new brand. Sometimes it can drag out. The branding is like hard to control because they have to approve things. So there's some, when I say 12 to 18 weeks, there's caveats there. If they don't approve things or turn things around quickly, I can't. But so we've come up with a lot of quick wins with the small businesses. And usually it's either just better website, better shipping, better checkout, better email, better acquisition. It's not rocket science, honestly. It's not. Sometimes there are bigger problems and sometimes it's harder than other situations, and sometimes there's product market fit, pricing issues, but oftentimes it's not the case. Once you go mid-market, it gets way more complex, right? The story in the mid-market, and I know you work ERP, NetSuite, Infor, like it's a whole different ballgame, right? And that's a big focus of ours, mid-market, right? So I'll take an example. What I'm finding in the mid-market is just a lack of thought around all their systems. And so someone bought Salesforce Marketing Cloud.
Exactly.
They have Adobe Commerce that doesn't integrate with Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Then they have they're migrating to NetSuite. They have Celigo or Boomi, whatever. They have all these software, like expensive software, right? Like sometimes, and they're and no one's thought about how everything works. Like, and there's no one taking ownership over the middleware concept. I think there's a big misunderstanding of middleware in iPaaS. So in the mid-market, we're really seeing a big opportunity in iPaaS. Like Soligo specifically is kind of our main partner. We're doing a little bit more with Workato now.
Yeah.
The other, Boomi and Jitterbit and some of these other solutions.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the mid-market more of like, how do we bring all their systems together? And there's more, they generally they might have decent marketing, right? In the mid-market, you're doing 100 million. You got to 100 million because you have some understanding of sales and marketing, right? Like you're doing 100 million, that's a successful business, theoretically, right? For the most part. You're a pretty successful business, right? You're not a $5 million business. You've gotten over, you have a sales team. There's more infrastructure, right? And that's where the infrastructure we see is a mess. So when we go into the mid-market, it's much more of a systems integration, looking at all of the customer lifecycle and how all the systems play together. And in that case, usually we're not going to be full service because they're bigger and maybe they're really good at email, or they're really good at they're really good at certain things, and we'll come in and say, all right, we're going to pick up these 3 things that you're not good at. We're going to fix all those areas. And I personally believe if you go to any 100, 200, 300 million company, 30% of the software they use is unnecessary because they bought 10 analytics tools, 3 CRMs. They bought all these tools, and the tools are evolving so fast that the CRM now does the analytics that does the same thing as the analytics tool they bought separately 3 years ago. And no one's come in and looked at everything and said, well, how do we consolidate 30% of it? And that's where I think the big opportunity. Does that make that was a long story. So I kind of want to hand that back to you and get your thoughts on that. But
So obviously, I am always interested in digging into the problems that these companies might be trying to solve. So obviously you provided a great description overall how the smaller companies differ from the bigger ones. And by the way, right now we are at still $100 million. When we talk about,
and then a billion, we'll come back to that. Then you get to the billion plus, and that's a whole nother ballgame.
Exactly. Sometimes they don't even know how many systems they have in their architecture. It's very hard to keep track.
In billion-dollar companies, you ask people how things work, and they're like, well, I got to go talk to Roger, who needs to go talk to Bill, who needs to go They don't even know how their own company works.
Exactly. So that's a different challenge. Obviously, we play in that space as well. So we kind of know how this is, it's not as simple as you can on the paper, right? So it becomes very challenging. But overall, let's say, my challenge, Isaiah, when I work with sometimes it's always hard, even for them. They just don't know what they don't know. Okay, that's always the biggest problem. Okay, for example, let's say if they are working with any company, and obviously, let's say if I am the CFO or the CEO, one of the decisions that I have to make is, do I hire my own marketing people? Do I hire my own developers? Do I hire my own IT? Or do I work with when you are going to be working with the consulting firm, the challenge that I, as the CFO, is going to run into is probably the cost is going to be higher. Obviously, if you are thinking that, then you are probably not accounting for everything that you have in terms of the expenses. And that's why you are probably going to feel the rates are going to be slightly higher in general. That's the perception, no questions about that, right? So that's the challenge that you have to.
Can we dig into that? Because I think that's a really important point.
Let's do it.
We're seeing certainly more companies go, we're going to take stuff in-house, especially in the economic downturn. We're doing it in-house because they think it's cheaper. And I think in some ways that is true, right? There are aspects where if you can do it in-house, you can do it well, it can be cheaper, right? Because you're paying directly for the people. There's no middleman. They don't have overhead. You don't have to deal with all the agency overhead. Where I think that their companies are misled, that's not always the case. And it's not an either-or decision. I think, my opinion is the answer is do both.
Okay.
And you need some in-house resources, right? You can't have no one running the ship. You can't just outsource your entire business, right? There's a limit to how much you can outsource, and there's a balance. And every company is different. So I think it depends on the company, depends on who you have, depends on your industry, where you're at in the business. There's too many factors to say it's a one-size-fits-all. But the broad answer to me is you need both. And the reason you need both is because what agencies like Trellis provide is something that most companies will never have in-house. We're constantly innovating on Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, front-end technologies, e-com technology, building a culture of excellence around engineering, project management, systems integrations. Like
Yeah.
most brands, with maybe some rare exceptions,
Yeah.
Amazon or something like that, they're just not going to have that level of in-house talent at the scale that we offer
Yeah.
and the flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Because say you need 100 hours a month of a mix of design, project management, systems now, we call it business systems analysis, development, and QA.
Yeah.
We can do that all for 100 hours a month, broken into like a mix and this
Sorry.
blended package.
You said $100 a month? Is that per
100
hour?
hours a month.
100 hours a month. Okay.
Maybe blended rate at 175, 185 an hour a month, right? Let's put it at that. So let's say 18 grand a month.
Okay.
You're getting all those mix of people. It might be 7 people touching your account.
So let's say if I'm the CFO, what am I getting out of it?
With 18 grand a month, you're maybe going to get 1.5 good full-time people. Maybe at the level that we're providing.
Yeah.
We can have 8 people touch your account with different skill sets and processes that we built up over 12 years.
Yeah.
And the value of that is like, sometimes you need more design. Sometimes you need more development. Sometimes you need more project. Like every month, based on what's going on, things change.
Yeah.
And so when you go in-house, you're very limited on the skill set of a much smaller team, right? And that team might only be good at engineering. And even when you go into engineers, they might only be good at back end and not front end. They might only be good at front end, not back end. They might only be good at branding, not UX.
Yeah.
There's so many nuances to all this kind of work that, there's a reason we have 75 people, right?
Yeah.
And that trying to replace all that with 3 people in-house, not to mention retaining those 3 people.
Yeah.
And not losing them. A lot of times I see people go in-house, they lose the people every 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
They have poor documentation. It's a revolving door. And no one knows what's going on. It's always a new person picking up the people. We can be that consistently. That's why I said the answer is both. Yeah. Because those people can use us as an extension of their team. Let's say there's 2 in-house and our team. Now they're a team of 10 or 15 capabilities, but they don't have to actually have 15 people's salary on staff. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see. And in my world, to be honest, and I don't know how many of my customers really understand the difference between front end and back end and UX. And to be honest, in our world, it's called IT guy. Okay, and the IT guy is supposed to know everything, starting from creating the logo.
Not realistic, and that's why you get to the $100 million company, and it's all a mess, and they're wasting 30% of their costs because the IT guy he's not going to know enough about all the systems, what systems to choose.
What are you talking about? Why do they not know? Are they not qualified?
They could be the smartest. I don't know it all. That's why I have 75 people on my team. It's just, you can't know it all with one person, or even I have a lot of the knowledge at a high level, but when I need to get deeper, I consult my own people.
Yeah.
Because there are things that I just can't go deep enough on myself.
You are so right, to be honest. If you compare this with, let's say, manufacturing, okay? Manufacturing people understand because they have seen it, they can see it, they can touch it, they can feel it, right? So when you go to manufacturing,
why can't you make a car? Why can't you make an entire car by yourself?
Exactly. Exactly.
Go make me a Tesla, just you right now, with your bare hands. You know what I mean?
You car guy, you go and make a Tesla for me right now. You car guy. Why can't you do it? And I want that in $20,000. Can you do that? Yeah, obviously, you need to understand the process of anything, whether you are cooking in a kitchen or, whatever you are doing. And irrespective of whether it is going to be software implementation, software development, doesn't matter. Even if you are implementing the package software, it still has to go through the process. And most times when you are seeing these issues, to be honest, it's just the maturity, the understanding, the customer's understanding. They don't understand how to respect the process. And then they complain that, things don't work. Things don't work because
the other problem is I think there's just so many vendors in the market that if I want a quote from you, I could probably go out and find 10 cheaper quotes. If you want a cheaper quote, you can always find someone that'll give you a cheaper quote. You know what I mean? So the value gets devalued because of just a lack of understanding and why are we more expensive than the shop next door? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think there's also a price problem too in the market, just because there's not really any barrier to entry, right? Anyone can just be I'm your IT guy, right? I'm your Shopify.
Everybody's an IT guy these days. These days.
Yeah, I'm the marketer. I'm your digital marketer. I'm your ads expert. I'm your SEO expert. I'm okay. What's to stop someone from, they could just be really good at sales.
Yeah. So yeah, very interesting conversation. So obviously, let's go back a little bit in terms of the approach that you had mentioned that you can probably do in 3-4 weeks. And in our customer base, when we are in the similar engagement, and I don't know if you guys have the same problem or not. And one of the things that is my favorite always is going to be politics. Okay. And the bigger the organization, the more politics you are going to
Well,
get.
let's go into the enterprise, right? Yeah. So, I mean, the mid-market, the 100 million, 200, you start to get into politics.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I love the mid-market is it's still tolerable, right? Like you can maybe talk to the CEO or the owner, or you can go. It's not usually that bad. There's politics, but it's not like, I don't feel like the mid-market is like ruined, is like too much politics, but sometimes it is.
Yeah.
When you go into the enterprise, when you go into the 500 million, the billion, the 2 billion, the 10 billion, the companies are
welcome to Super Bowl. It's going to get competitive.
Huge bad decisions because of politics.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the guy trying to protect his job.
No.
I don't know if he should please his boss. I don't know if he just doesn't like it. There's just so much political, nuances to the large companies. And that's where it just becomes a whole different ballgame. It's hard to navigate. A lot of times they pick technologies because they just know Salesforce and Salesforce is their friend. And you know what I mean? You get more of those kind of like decisions, I think, in the enterprise.
Yeah. And that's what I want to touch. I mean, see, when you talk about the brand, the logo, these are very emotional, religious things that people sort of want to keep to their chest.
Yeah.
And you are saying, hey, I'm going to replace your logo. I'm going to replace your branding within
we're not doing a lot of rebrands for billion-dollar companies. Let me be clear. Like, I'm not pitching rebrands to billion-dollar companies. Like, that is not something where, with our enterprise customers, we find, especially at our size, and we don't have a massive sales team and sales infrastructure. We typically go in for a more specific purpose. Maybe it's just development, and maybe it's just marketing. Maybe it's just it's usually honestly development or technology, because there's just so much work that needs to be done on integrations or whatever it may be, that there could be hundreds of hours a month. Just one service that they need, and that's where we'll focus when it comes to the enterprise. That's generally been how we've worked with the enterprise. That's not to say there's better ways to do it. It's just kind of where we are realistically.
Yeah, very interesting. And I want to touch on one more comment that you mentioned, and this is the challenge that we face. And in some cases, it's very hard to get results. And I think you spoke about this one on one of the LinkedIn posts as well. And that is going to be, and I don't know, again, if it is because, somebody's trying their job, but sometimes that could be because of the power struggle that they, and this is not a billion-dollar company, okay? So here we are talking about marketing versus finance versus supply chain. Everybody's sort of trying to protect their own guards in terms of how they want to approach. And here you have your marketing. They could be on Magento, they deployed it, but they are not getting the right data that they need from the procurement, from operations, from finance. And because of that, the experience is going to be all over the place. Sure, they can take a little bit of shortcuts inside the marketing layer, but unless there is an alignment across the enterprise, even if it is like very small company, you still need, because you are operating on the same product, same customers, same vendors. So these systems need to be talking to each other. And sometimes because of power struggle, if my Magento person says that, I'm not moving away from that, or I want to stick to this, and then I have my OMS layer, which could have their own sort of architecture, then might have WMS guy. Do you guys see this often in your space?
It's definitely job protection. It's also fear of change. I think it's also lack of leadership. I see a lot of lack of leadership in cross-department. I think a lot of companies get really departmentalized, and the IT guy focuses on Microsoft because he's like done Microsoft for 20 years and all he knows is ASP.NET. But the reality is there's probably better ways to do certain things in certain areas. And then marketing fights with IT. I think the problem is there's more and more overlap between departments than ever has been before.
Exactly.
E-commerce is IT, but it's also sales, it's also marketing. Marketing is more tech. It's integrations, it's data science, is that IT? Is it sales? Because there's sales and marketing overlap more and more now. Because marketing is getting leads or new business, but sales is closing it. But I think the problem that I'm seeing today is that there's not enough leadership that is bridging the gap. And we need more leaders that can, and that's what I try and do, is understand. Maybe I'm not the best expert in the world at every division, but I understand finance, operations, all these things well enough
Yeah.
to tell when someone is maybe biased too far in their department and not thinking about the whole organization as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I try and kind of break down those barriers and think about like, okay, I get that this is better for finance, but maybe we make this change, it'll be slightly worse for finance, but better for the overall organization. And once they adapt, it'll be better for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, because some of these short-term changes, yes, there's immediate pain. There's immediate pain for the OMS guy to learn a new OMS. There's immediate pain for the guy to learn the new e-commerce platform. So there is immediate short-term problem for that one person. But is it better for the overall organization? And I don't think a lot of people can either make those decisions because they just don't know enough, or they just don't take the time to like learn enough about it, what everyone else is. And it shouldn't really come from the top leaders, CEOs, the executives, the vice presidents, the leadership. That's why I say it's a lack of leadership.
Yeah, could not agree more. We are definitely living in a world of leadership crises. And if we had really the top guy who understood how to sort of balance the expectations, then we would probably not have as many problems in general. So now I am going to layer in another aspect that we were discussing sort of on our LinkedIn thread, which is going to be long-term versus, and that is also a very important perspective in general. Okay. So sales and marketing, they are going to be on top. Obviously, they need to deliver results.
Yeah, I think everyone's lowering their targets. They're realizing sales are down, marketing's harder. That's why the post I made today is about, look, I mean, it's going to be really hard to sell a 12-month ERP migration project, 12-month e-com re-platform, or even a 6-month, whatever. Because, I mean, you have to do the math. It's pretty simple, right? A 6-month project is not going to get you ROI in 7 months.
Yep.
Because it's going to cost you time and money over 6 months, unless some miracle happens and the first month sales skyrocket, which is probably not going to happen from a 6-month project in 1 month.
Yeah.
You're talking about a 12, 18, 2-month, 2-year ROI on a ROI might be double the life cycle of the project. You see what I'm saying? So like, a 12-month project might take 2 to 3 years to get the full ROI.
Yeah.
Because you need the next year to recoup the ROI of all the costs you just spent not having the thing running for 12 months, right? You spent $1 million replacing your ERP. You don't get any benefits until it's live. You know what I mean? The new one's live.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you have companies like Southwest that kick the can down the corner. And I think especially this has happened in the PE firms. The PE firms have really kicked the can down the corner. They bought all these companies. There's a bunch of tech debt, and they're realizing there's a lot of tech debt, and they've kicked the can to maximize margins. Some of that's coming to light. I think Southwest is the example, right? That's the one where the flights were down.
Yeah, Southwest. I know people want to talk about Southwest. To be honest, the people who are talking about that, I don't think they really understand how airline business. Okay, so in the case of airlines, you are not going to have like the traditional. Okay, it's a very different business the way it works from the IT.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm an expert on the technology, but from what I understand, there was a technology failure. Is that correct?
Yeah. But I mean, technology could fail because of so many different things, and sometimes that the problem is not necessarily technology. Sometimes the technology capacity is the problem. So the way I like to think about technology capacity, it's almost like supply chain planning. Okay, there is no way in the world that you are going to produce the inventory that everybody wants at this minute. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Okay, you have the finite amount of money, finite amount of time, and based on that, you are producing something. Exactly, and that's how IT capacity works. That's how IT capacity works. Okay,
so do you think it was an IT capacity failure and not a technology failure at Southwest?
It could be so many different things, but when the fluctuations are going to be there in the capacity, even if you are going to be on the cloud, it's very hard to estimate. And the reason why airlines businesses get trickier in general is because they are operating on something that is almost like Uber in nature or stock exchange. It works
very dynamic. It's very dynamic in real time. Yeah.
So the number of users that are accessing the system are far more than a business is ever going to have. So in that case, you have the brokers, the reservation agents, the core system Sabre or the Amadeus that they use underneath. It's very different from what you would see in the traditional commerce world.
And maybe I'm wrong, is that Southwest hadn't updated their technologies. They had kicked the can down the road on many things, including technology and maybe IT capacity, to focus on short-term profits. They brought in new CEOs that were finance people. They weren't in the weeds operators. They are finance people that focus on the bottom line. And my point is, they kick the can down the road. And I think the reason companies do that is because part of it is if you're trying to sell the company in a year or you're trying to post quarterly earnings, a 3-year or a year project that doesn't ROI for 2 to 3 years doesn't show up on your quarterly earnings for 3 years. You know what I mean? So I guess going back to my original point is that I think that this happens a lot in business, and it's happening. It's going to happen a lot now because no one's going to want to do, more. So with the recession, these big, long ROI projects, which is an opportunity, by the way, because if you can pull some of those off, you may be light years away of your competitors in 2-3 years. But what I think that there's a middle ground where maybe you start with a small piece, right? Like maybe you fix checkout, improve a piece of the pie, not the whole pie. And that's where I think like everyone needs to be thinking more about, right? And I think there's some criticism on the post about like, oh, if you only do that, you just do NFTs. Like, I'm not saying pivot your whole business and start peddling NFTs. I'm saying people like you or me, where we sometimes do 12-month projects. We don't only have to do that service. There are other things we can do that help customers in a shorter time,
Yeah, exactly. There's always going to be a path. And that's why, I mean, I don't know if you share this opinion or not, and you can tell me if you agree with me or not. Typically, we like to see some sort of roadmap, and roadmap always helps in designing where you are trying to get to. You don't have to implement everything right away. But if you have sort of a map and then figure out, okay, what is my fine slice that I want to implement? Sales, marketing, supply chain, whatever may be impacting the results that you are trying to get. And as you correctly pointed out, that everything is super connected these days. Okay, just because you are going to fix your sales and marketing, it's not going to fix other things, right? Because if the foundation is weak, it's just harder to
or
get
you fix sales and marketing, and then all of a sudden you can't handle the volume,
exactly.
Right? And then, you have these. That's always, I think, one of the hardest things, and we struggle with it. Is how do you balance your investments in sales and marketing to drive new business, but also capacity and delivery so that, when you get it, you can handle it and it doesn't fall down. There's this balancing act. You can't overinvest in one or the other, right?
Yeah. And that is always the hardest part. And that's what I like to call, whether you want to call supply chain planning or operations planning, it's a rocket science in general, and I don't think it is going to get any easier anytime soon because this is the supply.
I almost feel like it's like better to just try not to over plan because you may spend a bunch of time planning for something that's just so far off what's going to end up happening. You're almost better off putting your energy into just things that are going to help grow the business, right? That posting on LinkedIn for me once a day generally helps the business, right? Like there's some things I know, and I need to double down on some of those things, rather than trying to forecast something that's probably not going to be accurate in 12 months.
Yeah. All right, man. So that's it for today. Do you have any last minute closing advice for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people in this environment, in this economy, we're in unprecedented times, honestly. I talked to one of my long-standing customers that's pretty successful guy. He's been around for a long time. He's pretty big business. And he's like, no one knows. Like anyone that says they know is lying because we've never seen 0% interest rates from 2009 to 2022 to all of a sudden 0 to 4 now, and we'll be at 5 probably soon. So we had this crazy 13-year period of unprecedented free money, inflation, whatever you want to call it. Now with this new, very quick rising interest rates, we're in very unprecedented times. And it is a little scary. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I think it's hard to predict things, but if there's one thing I would say that I would recommend people do is talk to people like me. I will always have a free conversation with anyone. If you're a $0 business, all the way up to the biggest businesses, of course, obviously, and have more conversations and get more advice and think about things differently, right? A lot of people, I'll have conversations with people and they're like, oh, I was talking to this one company that has an RFP out, and I was like, look, guys, like I can get you a quote, but if you can't get me detail, they couldn't even tell me the ERP they're using. It just says integrate with ERP. I'm like, dude,
give me a code.
If we can't dig into your ERP, like why are we even talking? Like I think people need to have more conversations up front, really be more thoughtful about what they're doing and not dive into buying software on a whim. There's been a lot of bad decisions because of the free money in the past 12 years. And it's because you could get away with it. honestly.
Yeah.
And I think you need to have more conversations with people like you. If I was buying an ERP, I would talk to people like you, 10 people like you, and try and really figure out what is the right ERP for my business. Because everyone's going to be I'm biased, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You not be a little biased, right? Like, and I think you need to spend however long it takes to get as much different information to make the right decision.
Yeah, could not agree more. And my personal takeaway from this conversation is going to be really kind to yourself, especially in this market. Think through your decisions. Don't rush into them. And market is definitely going to be rough, but it doesn't mean that opportunities are not there. Opportunities are going to be.
Positive thing I will say is that in situations like this, if you can navigate through it, there is always an opportunity to come out way ahead of the competition. Because if everyone's down, but you're down less, you're still ahead, right? Like.
Smart people are good at figuring that out. They want to go slow, but they want to figure out the opportunity. So yeah, great thought. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. Let's do this again. I mean, in a year, a lot will change, and I'll have more new information.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd love to have you. Obviously, you are part of the industry, and it's always good to get perspective from the industry, right? So it's always fun. So thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you so much for being generous with your time. Obviously, we have a lot of collaboration that we are going to do. So thank you so much once again for the episode.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for getting me on.
Of course. I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Isaiah, head over to trellis.co. It's CRELLIS.co. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.